Welcome to Michigan's WW1 Centennial News Report for November 2013, titled The Hello Girls. This is the story of the Hello Girls, women who thought they enlisted in the U.S. Army Signal Corps to operate the telephone system in France for the U.S. Army. They had to be fluent in both English and French and also know how to operate the telephone equipment. The chief operator was Grace Banker. Beginning in November of 1917, the U.S. Army Signal Corps started to recruit women from the commercial telephone companies. Over 7,000 women applied and 450 were selected. The women were recruited by the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, now known as AT&T. The women received military and Signal Corps training. These women, who retained their civilian status, became members of the Signal Corps Female Telephone Operators Unit Number 25, better known as the Hello Girls. The reason for the name was because when the American soldiers picked up the telephone, instead of hearing a French operator saying bonjour, they heard an American woman operator saying hello. The new recruits were sent to Fort Franklin, present-day Fort Meade, Maryland, for military training, and radio and switchboard operator school, which was taught by the commercial telephone companies. The schooling did not pose a problem to the recruits, as most of the Hello Girls had been recruited from American Telephone and Telegraph Company, and they were former switchboard operators. Upon graduating from school, they were required to purchase their own uniforms and were issued dog tags and gas masks. The first uniforms of the Hello Girls were navy blue. Later they were changed to a version of olive drab. They wore campaign hats with orange hat cords and also a garrison hat. As far as the insignia, they wore Signal Corps collar brass of crossed flags. Oleda was a 19-year-old American woman of French-Canadian origin and lived in Marine City, Michigan, which is located along the St. Clair River. Oleda had been trained by the Bell Telephone Company as a trainer for women switchboard operators because she was something rare at the time, a woman that graduated from high school. Since age 13, Oleda had a love for music and played piano for dance bands throughout the Thumb District. While sailing over to France on the SS Olympic, which had been placed in quarantine at Southampton, England for 2 weeks because of the Spanish influenza, she entertained the troops. When she was asked by Red Cross officials to accept a position touring camps and hospitals to entertain, she replied that she was in the Army under orders for the duration. While in France, she was assigned to General Pershing's American Expeditionary Force headquarters in Charmont, France. Oleda and all the other U.S. Army Signal Corps operators stood inspections in the ranks of soldiers for General Pershing's visiting dignitaries. She remembers President Wilson, Marshal Ferdinand Foch, and the Prince of Wales. During one leave, which was given on a pass exactly the same way as to any soldier, Oleda traveled to Bordeaux to meet her brother Wallace, who was a member of the Army's barbershop quartet, which was traveling through France entertaining troops. When she returned to civilian life, Oleda continued her dual career as a training supervisor for the Bell Telephone Company of Michigan and as a professional piano player with dance bands until 1933, when she married Mr. Christie's. Her ties to France were renewed when her husband was sent to Paris in the 1950s for 8 years as a U.S. Treasury representative. When the couple visited the cafes of Saint-Germain, French neighbors often requested that Oleda play the old World War I songs that had united the Allies in a spirit for the long, hard battles of 1918. When the Hello Girls returned to the United States and applied for their honorable discharges for service in France, they were told they could not have been sworn in the U.S. Army because U.S. Army regulations stated that males were sworn in and said nothing about persons as the U.S. Navy regulations had. In 1978, after a 48-year battle with the U.S. Army, the Hello Girls finally received their veteran status and were issued honorable discharges. Brigadier General Arthur Wolfe presents Mrs. Christie's with her honorable discharge at her home. Cora H. Bartlett was from Hillsdale, Michigan, who enlisted in the U.S. Army Signal Corps as a hello girl because her greatest adventure was to go overseas. Miss Bartlett died in France from influenza in the spring of 1919. When asked about her experience overseas, one telephone operator said, "All for glory the soldier's life, all for glory the operator's life in France. It was wonderful, quite the most delightful and worthwhile experience I have ever had. I think my year in England and France equivalent to a 4-year college education. Certainly it was a knowledge broadener." Another operator said, "We couldn't have been better provided for, and I cannot say too much for the Signal Corps officers. They were courteous and considerate always. I instructed the boys in Class C, a class made up of soldiers wounded at the front and unfit for active service again, who desired training as operators. This instruction was given on a field switchboard, and the boys were willing and capable students."
Hello, Central, give me no man's land. My daddy's there. My mama told me. She tiptoed off the bed after my prayers were said. Don't ring when you get the number, or you'll disturb Mama's slumber. I'm afraid to stand here at the phone, 'cause I'm alone. So won't you hurry? I want to know why Mama starts to weep when I say now I lay me down to sleep.